5 budget-friendly changes that you can make to your nutrition and 5 budget-friendly ways to start investing. I'm here with Jaspreet Singh. You might know him as Minority Mindset on YouTube and Instagram. Jaspreet, thanks for hopping on.
Hey man, thank you for having me on.
You bet, dude. I'll let you jump in first. So we're gonna go back and forth. So he's gonna share, hey, here's a way that you don't have to be a millionaire to make an investment. And I'm gonna say, hey, here's a way you don't have to be a millionaire to start changing your health. And we're gonna go back and forth with 5 each. So I'll let you kick off.
You've got to check out Thrive Market, seriously. Like if you are trying to just make better choices and you're trying to also save some money, you've got to check them out. So what it is it's an online grocery store, but everything that they have there are products that they have vetted in terms of being better for you options. So it's not like going to your regular like Piggly Wiggly grocery store and finding whatever junk is in the aisles. It's really finding things that are good options for you, but then it gets delivered to your doorstep in a day or two. It's super easy, super convenient, but that link down below, since they're a sponsor on this channel, saves you 25% off your entire grocery order. That's 25% off your entire order plus a free gift, and then it gets delivered to your doorstep. So you save money there, plus you save money not having to go to the grocery store, plus you save your time not having to walk around the grocery store, plus you save your time not having to talk to Rick, your weird neighbor that you ran into at the grocery store. So that link is down below. Check them out after this video.
The first thing I would say, the quickest way to increase your wealth is next time you get a raise, next time you get an increase in your salary, do not inflate your lifestyle. Most people have this sense of feeling that if I just made more money, I'll be able to invest more money. But statistically, what we've seen happen is when people's incomes go from here to here, their expenses go from here to here, which is why when the majority of people make more money, they actually end up digging themselves into a bigger financial hole, because now you make more money, you can qualify for bigger credit cards, you can qualify for more debt, and then you spend more money. So the simple thing that you can do is next time you make more money, do not increase your lifestyle, or maybe just increase your lifestyle marginally and take that additional money and invest it.
Smart move. Okay, and on the nutrition side, simple thing is eat a bigger breakfast. And it sounds like, Thomas, that sounds like you're gonna make me spend more money. I'm gonna have to eat a bigger breakfast. No, studies are very, very clear with this, that the larger that you have a meal in the morning, the more satiated you are throughout the course of the day. And on average, people end up consuming a couple hundred less calories per day when they consolidate a lot of their calories to the beginning of the day. And it has to do with satiety hormones, it has to do with kind of gut incretins and how it communicates with the brain. But it doesn't take a lot more money to, well, it does take a lot more money to add eggs these days, but it doesn't take a lot more money to add one more egg to breakfast or a scoop of whey protein powder that costs 33 cents a scoop, right? And increase your protein and increase your satiety level by doing that in the morning. It's such a budget-friendly hack where you don't even have to change anything but the allocation of what you are already eating.
Interesting, I like that. The second thing that I would say has to do with now how you're investing your money. See, most people assume that if I want to invest my money in the stock market, I have to find the next Amazon before it becomes Amazon. The issue with that is when most people try to do that, they end up losing money. Like we were just talking about how the stock market historically has gone up on average 10% a year. That doesn't mean it goes up every year. We've gone through multiple crashes, almost a crash every decade. Yet on average, it has gone up every year. Yet at the same time, most people lose their money in the market. So what do you do? Well, instead of trying to find the next Amazon stock, just invest your money into the market. There are things called ETFs. There's other funds as well, like index funds and mutual funds. ETFs, I would say, are the most accessible. These are ways now for you to invest your money into the general stock market instead of trying to find the next Amazon or the next Google. So I'll give you a few examples. This is not investment advice, just an example. VTI is an ETF that gives you exposure to the total stock market. If you invest in that one ETF, VTI, you're getting exposure to the United States stock market. SPY, that's an ETF that gives you exposure to the biggest 500 companies in the stock market called the S&P 500. DIA is an ETF that gives you exposure to the Dow Jones, and QQQ is an ETF that gives you exposure to the NASDAQ. So now these are different. If you invest in any one of these ticker symbols, you're getting exposure to one of the most popular and well-known funds or indexes in the stock market, and now you are literally just investing your money into the stock market. And historically, what we've seen is if you keep your money in the markets long enough, well, you're gonna be able to build a lot of wealth over the long term. But it requires you now just to understand, you don't have to do the most sexy thing and find the next Amazon, but do the thing that actually produces real wealth.
Interesting. That's a hard one to beat. So with that, I'm going to say, okay, how much does it cost to get a lemon? What does a lemon cost these days? Maybe probably 25 cents for a lemon?
Yeah.
Okay. This is interesting. So if you start having lemon water with your meals, it sounds like such a cheeky, like I always say, woo-woo witch doctor-y thing to do. But the evidence behind the citrus effect, the actual effect of lemons on amylase, which is an enzyme that breaks down starches, is profound. So by having the juice of a half a lemon or a full lemon if you want to be really frisky, that can literally delay how long it takes to break down carbohydrates. So if you're sitting down and you're having, I'm just going to use an extreme example, a big bowl of pasta or something, bunch of carbohydrates, well, you're going to have a pretty big glucose spike that's going to come along with that. And that's not exactly the best thing for metabolic health, right? I mean, as long as your glucose comes back down, insulin's doing its job, it's not bad, right? And one would argue, oh, you have to be in a caloric surplus for this to be a problem, but I think most of the research is starting to agree that refined starches in copious amounts are not good. So what does this lemon water do? Well, because it impacts the enzyme activity of what breaks down those starches, it makes it so that the starches break down slow. So instead of having this crazy spike, you get more of a gentle bell curve that your body has the ability to deal with. So the same kind of thing can be done with apple cider vinegar too. So a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar or lemon water or a little bit of both.
Wow, I did not know that. I might start drinking my lemon water with my dinners. Number 3 is don't save all of your money. And this one's gonna sound counterintuitive because growing up, I was always told, save, 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 save. But what happens when you save your money is your money is just sitting still. It's essentially dead. It's not doing anything. But now inflation has become a much more popular term. Inflation essentially, without getting into the nitty-gritty of what inflation is, it essentially means that the prices of things are going up. And so if inflation is higher than the interest rate that you're getting at your bank with your savings, which right now, that's what we're seeing happen, that means your savings are slowly losing value. That means, in essence, each and every day that you're saving your money in the bank, you're becoming poorer because your savings are losing value. So now, this doesn't mean you shouldn't save any money. This means you need to save your money strategically. That means you want to save some money for an emergency. I would say at the minimum 3 months worth of expenses, save that. So calculate what is your monthly expenses, multiply by 3. That is the minimum you should be saving. And then on the high end, I would say 12 months worth of expenses. So you take your monthly expenses, multiply that by 12, that's the max you want to save. Now, after you save that money, the rest of the money you're saving should be money you're going to invest. It doesn't mean it has to be invested today, but this money should be putting aside to invest, because now when you invest your money into assets, whether stocks or real estate or something else, now you're working to grow this money. That way you can beat inflation or at least match inflation. That way now your money is growing instead of losing value.
Ooh, nice. Okay, well, in that similar vein, we can talk about the quality of nutrients that you might get in fruit. And you're thinking, how is that in a similar vein? Well, no, it's all about making something work for you. Okay, so I'm going to talk specifically about fruits for a second. I want people to opt for the darkest colored berry or the darkest colored fruits that they can consume. Okay, why do I say this and why is it budget friendly? Well, because if you were to go out and you were to get, let's say a mango. I don't have a whole lot of bad things to say about mangoes, except they don't have a lot of nutritional value. Okay, it's a lot of sugar, a lot of fructose, and really, unless you're burning that stuff off, it's probably not doing you a heck of a lot of good. But you take something like a blueberry or a blackberry or a boysenberry or these berries that are chokeberries, which are harder to find, but they're like one of the most nutrient dense. Those dark pigments, that is something called anthocyanins. These are polyphenols that directly impact how we metabolize glucose, but they also directly impact our brain and neuroinflammation. So they impact how we feel, how we think. There have been a lot of rodent model studies and some human studies that have demonstrated that anthocyanins directly impact how our brain operates and improve cognitive function. Literally can improve cognitive performance in the short term and cognitive sustainability and just improvements or preventing cognitive decline over the long term. So worried about neurodegenerative conditions, things like that. So it comes down to, okay, well, bang for the buck. Mangoes are not the cheapest fruit. Good organic blueberries are not the cheapest fruit either. But the bang for the buck that you get from a darker colored berry, it's a budget-friendly way that you can squeeze 20x the benefit out of that sweet fruit that you're gonna have, right? If you're gonna have something sweet, you might as well have it actually do work for you. So it's like an investment in your body. And these polyphenols, it sounds like, again, it's woo-woo witch doctor stuff. Like, oh, polyphenols, like flavonols, phenolic compounds. It sounds like you're just trying to sprinkle whatever like nonsense you can. No, the data is there. Like, I don't talk about things that aren't rooted in evidence. And the polyphenols do impact how we metabolize carbohydrates. They improve how we metabolize fats. They improve our satiety. They improve our brain. And you'll probably feel really good eating it because they taste dang good.
Wow, I like that one. I'm going to come back to that. We'll kind of counter that with now a simple rule, the rule of 5, which I say when it comes to spending money, which is now if you can't buy 5 of them, you can't afford 1 of them. Because most of the times we assume that if I have $100 in the bank, I can go out and afford a $100 pair of shoes. And this is where I want you to change the way you start thinking about money and not live in this what I call net zero thinking, which is I have $100, I should be able to spend $100. We're going to be working to make ourselves rich first by using some money for ourselves. And the simplest way to know that now is don't just buy something because you can buy it. Buy things if you can afford it. And how do you know if you can afford it? Well, for things that are not necessities for our lives, if you can't buy 5 of them, you can't afford 1 of them.
Interesting. All right. So with that, let's talk about one that I actually mentioned earlier on another video that we did that I think is a tremendous budget-friendly way to help you from spending too much money at the store. And that's when you had mentioned going to the store and being like, hey, like if you have this 24-hour rule, which is great. You know, basically, if you want to buy something impulse, then no, come back 24 hours later and see if you still need it. Rule number 1, and a lot of people know this, you never go to the grocery store hungry. Okay, let's just get that out of the way. Never, ever, ever. My wife and I have sometimes a terrible habit of, like, when we have our date nights, sometimes we literally just go to Costco or something because it's like the only time we can just go to the store and just like, where do you want to go? It's too cold to go out for a walk. Let's just go walk around Costco.
Yeah.
And it's like we do that before we go to dinner, and it's like, oh shoot, oh my gosh, we just walked out of there with $300 worth of stuff, like groceries, right? Like It's just because everything looks good. And how different that can be if you drink a glass of water or 2. 16 ounces is usually what I say because it's kind of the threshold. It's like 8 ounces isn't quite enough, but 16 ounces, you get a little bit of a gustatory response that absolutely does have an impact within about 10 or 15 minutes on your appetite. And this is demonstrated quite clearly, like water does kill your appetite. So before you go grab a Twix or before you go into the grocery store to do any grocery shopping, it doesn't cost you any money to drink 16 ounces of water. And trust me, it will make the decision making that much better. And you think, okay, well, that's great. It's going to improve how I shop. Well, you might not realize this, but that's going to improve the rest of your week because then what is your home stocked with? So that one pivotal decision, that's one of the biggest levers you can make is having the knowledge and the willpower and the strength to go into the store and choose the right foods.
I like that. And I'm going to end with a rule just like that one. So you got that the 30-minute rule to drink the water. I'm going to end with the basic rule of how do you use your money. And the key, like we've been talking about, is you don't want to spend all of your money, but you want to create a system so you know how to use your money. And what I like to say is start with a simple rule of thumb, like the 75-15-10 plan, which says that for every dollar that you earn from here on out, 75 cents is the maximum that you can spend. 15 cents is the minimum that you're investing, and 10 cents is the minimum that you're saving. Now when you do that, you're automatically paying yourself first. And when I say pay yourself first, I mean you're investing money first, you're saving money first, and then you also have money to spend, but you're not spending your money and then investing whatever's left. Because when you do that, you never have any money left to invest. So you want to make sure you put that money aside to invest first. And an easy way now, because if you're saying, how am I going to live off of only 75% of what I make? Well, if the government taxed you an additional 25%, you're going to kick, scream, complain, and then you're going to find a way to pay it. Just like that, you got to create that discipline of knowing I'm going to live below my means. And maybe that means I got to follow, like what you're saying, the 24-hour rule, where before I go buy something that I want, I'll wait 24 hours to see if I still want it after 24 hours. That way now you can cut down some of your spending so you have more money to invest and you have more money to save. That way you can build your wealth before you make everybody else wealthy.
Interesting. And if we're doing rules, then I've got a good rule that people can follow too. And that's a simple 12-hour rule. And what I mean by that is a 12 hours of not eating rule. If you stop eating at 7 p.m., don't eat until 7 a.m. the next day. If you stop eating at 8 p.m., don't eat until 8 a.m. the next day. The biggest problem that we have with nutrition in today's world is very similar to the biggest problem we have in finance, which is overconsumption and not giving ourselves ever a break to recoup. It's like generating money and spending money. It's the same thing as like consuming calories and expending calories. It's like you need to be expending more calories than you are taking in. You need to be making more than you're burning, or than you're spending, excuse me. But in this case, taking a 12-hour break from food gives your body a chance to A, kind of restore, but B, you're allowing insulin levels to come back down to baseline. If you're constantly bombarding yourself with food all of the time, then you're chronically keeping insulin levels elevated. And although the data is clear on calories being very important, the data is also very clear on time-restricted feeding, giving yourself breaks from food, adequate breaks. And people might think, oh, 12 hours, that sounds like a long time, that sounds like fasting. A lot of people get pretty close to 12 hours without even realizing it. The one difference I want people to be able to make is that 12 hours needs to be a very clear and defined 12 hours, where inside that 12-hour period, sure, you could have some black coffee, you could have some green tea, but you're not taking in more than a couple of calories that would just be coming from that. Like there's no food, no creamers, no sweeteners. It's just 12 hours of clear fasting, okay? Just only clear liquids, that's all that's coming in. And this allows those insulin levels to stabilize so that when you do start eating again, you've regained what's called insulin sensitivity, where your cells are able to utilize the fuel that you brought in. You just increased the value of your nutritional dollar, if you want to call it that. Because now the nutrition that you do take in, the protein you do take in, your body is going to suck it up and want to utilize it better. It's a very colloquial way of putting it, but that insulin sensitivity is what prevents us from becoming insulin resistant, developing diabetes, dealing with all these issues that plague us later in life. Much like investing, making healthy decisions might be more difficult today, but it impacts us directly 20 years from now. And it's hard for us to think 20 years in advance. So make the decisions now, and it makes all the difference in the world.
Now, buy what you're consuming. If you're going to the Apple store, if you're eating at Chipotle, the simplest way to start investing, if you don't know what to do, if you're really confused and you just want to start investing, is buy what you're already spending money on. If you go and invest in one of the Chipotle stock, you become one of the owners of Chipotle. If you buy one share of Apple, you become one of the owners of the Apple company. So now what can you do if you want to start? Well, if you're going to spend $1 at Apple, spend 25 cents buying the stock. If you're going to spend $1,000 buying the new iPhone, spend $250 buying that stock. Now, does this guarantee you're going to make money on that? No, but this is a way for you to get started. That way, once you start investing, I guarantee you, you're going to become more interested on what you're investing your money in, because now you're going to want to research. Is Apple making money? Are they a good company? Are they a bad company? And as soon as you become invested, because now you got skin in the game, you're going to start learning, because now you have your money in it. And if you're already spending money there, well, chances are other people are too. And that could make for a great investment now, because now at least you're owning what you're consuming.
That's a very good point. Now with that, I'll finish up on probably the biggest lever that people can pull, and that's going to be improving your sleep. Well, okay, that's cheesy. Thanks, Thomas. It's great for you to say that, but how the heck do I do that? There's a couple of different ways, but I'll give a very simple, direct way that people can try to improve their sleep. And it's kind of a three-tiered approach. Okay, for one, it's cutting out the blue light as close to bedtime as you can, or at least limiting the blue light exposure, right? The reason that this is so important is it's all comes down to melatonin production in the brain. If we are constantly exposed to even artificial light, not just blue light from the TV. If you're gonna watch TV, turn all the lights off. You know, it's still blue light, but at the end of the day, it is dose dependent. What that means is like the amount of blue light matters, okay? So if you have all the lights on in the house and you have the TV on and you're looking at your phone, that's a lot of blue light, and that basically impedes melatonin production. So it impacts your sleep, and you may not even realize it, but it's impacting how your actual sleep waves are patterning and what's happening. And I understand that not everyone wants to be a weirdo and wear blue light blocking glasses. Not everyone wants to shut their phone down. I don't even fully shut my phone down, right? I still have to deal with things. I still have a business to run. But I do turn off all the lights in the house. I try to get it as dark as possible. I think that's very, very important. The second prong to this is try not to eat 2 to 3 hours before bedtime, which goes right in line and dovetails with that last one that I talked about. Cut it out at 7, then you can eat at 7 a.m. the next day. If you go to bed at 10, cut it out at 7. And these are all very important because sleep is the biggest catalyst. Now I'm gonna come back to the third thing, because that's more of a hack thing that you can actually do. But before I share that, I'll explain why it's so important, okay? So the studies have demonstrated that just one night of bad sleep can reduce your glucose tolerance immensely. 4 nights of bad sleep can ruin it over 50%. And it's all temporary, but that means that if you go out and you eat a bunch of sugar after 4 nights of poor sleep, your glycemic response, your blood sugar response to that is going to be tremendously worse than if you were fully rested. Meaning the actual metabolic impact of the food that you eat is tremendously changed based upon how you slept. Your food decision making is tremendously impacted. Okay, the food in which you choose to buy, everything is changed when you sleep, when you don't sleep, or when you sleep. So the last one is one that's pretty interesting. I talked about this on Instagram, and it's utilizing like a quarter cup of tart cherry juice a couple hours before bed. It is super cheap. You can get tart cherry juice, organic tart cherry juice at Walmart for I think $7, and you need less than a quarter cup to help you sleep. It increases melatonin levels. It's super high in tryptophan, so it improves melatonin uptake into the brain. And yeah, you could say, why don't I just take a melatonin supplement? Well, I could give you a million reasons not to take a melatonin supplement. That's not a good use of your money. I'm all about doing the most that we can with food, and that's, you're talking like, pennies on the dollar for how much you're able to get effectiveness of sleep. And it's probably gonna make the biggest impact.
Wow, that's awesome, man.
So, man, where can everyone find you?
Well, if you want to learn more about the money side of things, you can go to Minority Mindset on YouTube. You can also check out theminorittymindset.com.
Cool, right on. Thanks, brother.
I appreciate you, man.